start now 5 minutes in?
Yeah.
We're still bad at this.
We are always bad at the intros. That's a problem we have. We'll have to work on it.
1, 2, 3. Hello.
Hello.
And welcome to the recording.
Hi. No. What?
No. What? Did you get a stroke?
You think so? You want to say hi, Liz?
Hi. Hi. And welcome to our little corner of the internet. And hello to you.
This is the reading corner. The Reading Nook. The Reading Nook?
The Reading Nook.
The Reading
We got
Nook.
it.
Today we are picking up where we left off on Scythe.
Yeah.
We started reading it a couple of weeks ago on our chill out corner.
Yeah.
And decided that we'd make this into its own little segment.
Yeah.
So we're going to keep reading it for you. Should I do a little recap?
Yeah.
No pressure.
It's about a guy
Mm-hmm.
and the girl.
Okay.
And then there's a Scythe.
Yeah.
And he comes to the house.
Mm-hmm.
And then he invites them to the theater. And they do the fancy theater.
Mm-hmm.
And then they go to the museum. And then they eat food. And then he says, "You're the Scythes now." And the guy before that, he is with another Scythe when he kills the thing. And the guy. And that's all that happened.
You did so good. Like, right up till the end.
Hmm?
You did so good.
Thank you.
That was...
I think that's all we need.
I think that is all we need.
If you want to see it,
If you
there's
want
another
to...
video.
If you want to hear me read the first 3 chapters, there's another video for that.
Oh, and then they decide to do it because they want the immunity for their families.
Yes, well, Citra, it's about Citra and Rowan,
That's what I said.
who grow up in very different lives. And they both
Are you
get...
gonna do a recap after?
No,
my
I
recap now?
No, I just want to do the end. And they both get offered
Yeah.
the part
Yeah.
as a Scythe. And Rowan decides to do it for him, while Citra
right.
decides to do it for her brother.
Yeah.
The book is written by Neal Shusterman.
Yeah.
We're gonna read like 3 chapters.
I'm not gonna read anything.
No, you're just gonna listen.
Yeah.
And hope you like it. Let's do it. Get settled.
Get comfortable.
That's better.
Yeah.
Gotta be comfortable. Okay. From the Gleaning Journals of H.S. Curie. I had my cultural audit today. It happens only once a year, but it's never any less stressful. This year, when they crunched each cultural index from those I gleaned over the past 12 months, I, thankfully, came up well within accepted parameters. 20% Caucasoid, 18% Afric, 20% Pan-Asian, 19% Meso-Latino, 23% other. Sometimes it's hard to know. A person's index is considered private, so we can only go by visible traits, which are no longer as obvious as they had been in the past generations. When Scythe's numbers become loop-sided, they are disciplined by the high blade and are assigned their gleanings for the next year rather than being allowed to choose for themselves. It's a sign of shame. The index is supposed to keep the world safe from cultural and genetic bias, but aren't there underlying factors that we can't escape? For instance, who decided that the first number of one's genetic index would be Caucasoid? I want to say Caucasian every time.
Yeah,
and it just messes with my mind. Who decided that the first genetic index would be Caucasoid? Good question.
Mm-hmm.
Chapter 4. Learner's Permit to Kill. Forget what you think about Scythes. Leave behind your preconceived notions. That's the word. Leave behind your preconceived notions. Your education begins today. Citra could not believe what she was going through. No. Citra could not believe she was going through with this. This is going to take me a while. I've had a long day. Citra could not believe she was actually going through with this. What secret, self-destructive part of herself had asserted its will over her? What had possessed her to accept the parenticeship? Now there was no backing out. Yesterday, on the third day of the new year, Scythe Faraday had come to her apartment and had given a year's immunity to her father and brother. He added several months to her mother's, so their immunity would all expire at the same time. Of course, if Citra was chosen to be a full Scythe, their immunity would become permanent. Her parents were tearful when she left. Citra wondered whether they were tears of sorrow, joy, or relief. Perhaps a combination of all three. "We know you will do great things in this world," her father said, and she wondered what about bringing death could be considered great. "Do not be so arrogant as to think you have a license to glean. The license is mine and mine alone. At most you have, shall we say, a learner's permit. I will, however, require at least one of you to be present at each of my gleanings, and if I ask you to assist, you will." This is written in
Slanted writing.
yes,
Yeah.
italic, I think it is. Citra unceremoniously withdrew from school and said goodbye to friends in awkward little conversations. It's not like I won't be around, I just won't be at school anymore. But who is she kidding? Accepting this parenticeship put her on the outside of an
Impenetrable?
yes, thank you, wall. Impenetrable. Wall. No, I'm not gonna do it. We're done.
A wall.
A wall that can't be penetrated. It was both demoralizing yet heartening to know that life would go on without her. And it occurred to her that being a Scythe was like being the living dead, in the world but apart from it, just witness to the comings and goings of others. We are above the law, but that does not mean we live in defiance of it. Our position demands a level of morality beyond the rule of law. We must strive for incorruptibility and must assess our motives on a daily basis. While she did not wear a ring, Citra was given an armband to identify her as a Scythe's apprentice. Rowan had one too, bright green bands bearing the curved blade of a farmer's scythe above an unblinking eye, the double symbol of the Scythehood. That symbol would become a tattoo on the arm of the chosen apprentice. Not that anyone would ever see the tattoo, for Scythes are never seen in public without their robes. Citra had to tell herself that there was an out. She could fail to perform. She could be a lousy apprentice. She could sabotage herself so completely that Honorable Scythe Faraday would be forced to choose Rowan and return her to her family at the end of the year. The problem was that Citra was very bad at doing things half-assed. It would be so much harder for her to fail than to succeed.
Relatable.
I will not tolerate any romantic notions between the two of you, so banish the thought from your mind now.
Okay.
Citra had looked over Rowan when the Scythe said that, and Rowan had shrugged. Not a problem, he said, which irritated Citra. At the very least, he could have voiced some minor disappointment. Yeah, Citra said. No hope of that, with or without the rule. Rowan had just grinned at that, which had made her even more annoyed. You shall study history, the great philosophers, the sciences. You will come to understand the nature of life and what it means to be human before you are permanently charged with the taking of life. You will also study all forms of killcraft and become experts. Like Citra, Rowan found himself unsettled by his decision to take this on, but he was not going to show it, especially not to Citra. And in spite of the blasé attitude he showed her, he was, in fact, attracted to her. But he knew even before the Scythe forbade them that such pursuits could not end well. They were adversaries, after all. Like Citra, Rowan stood beside Scythe Faraday as the man held out his rings to each member of his family, offering them immunity. His brothers, sisters, half-siblings, grandma, and her all-too-perfect husband, who Rowan suspected might actually be a bot. Each intern knelt respectfully and kissed the ring, transmitting their DNA to the worldwide immunity database in the Scythedom's own special cloud, separate and apart from the Thunderhead. The rule was that all members of an apprentice household would receive immunity for 1 year, and there were 19 people in Rowan's sprawling household. His mother had mixed feelings because now no one would move out for at least a year to make sure their immunity would become permanent once Rowan received his Scythe ring, if he got the ring. The only glitch had been when the ring vibrated, giving off a little alarm, refusing immunity to his grandmother's new husband, because he was a bot, after all. You shall live as I do, modestly and subsisting on the goodwill of others. You will take no more than you need and waste nothing. People will attempt to buy your friendship. They will lavish things upon you. Accept nothing but the barest of human necessities. Faraday had brought Rowan and Citra to his home to begin their new lives. It was a small bungalow in a run-down part of the city that Rowan hadn't even known existed. People playing at poverty, he had told them, because no one was impoverished anymore. Austerity was a choice, for there were always those who shunned the plenty of the post-mortal world. Faraday's home was Spartan. Little decorations, unimpressive furniture. Rowan's room had space for only a bed and a small dresser. Citra, at least, had a window, but the view was of a brick wall. I will not tolerate childish pastimes or vapid communications with friends. Commitment to this life means leaving behind your old life as fully as possible. When, a year from now, I choose between you, the unchosen one can return to his or her former life easily enough. But for now, consider that life a part of your past. Once they were settled in, he didn't allow them to brood over their circumstances. As soon as Rowan had unpacked his bags, the Scythe announced that they were going to the market. To glean? Rowan asked, more than a little sick at the prospect. No, to get food for the two of you, Faraday told them, unless you prefer to eat my leftovers. Citra smirked at Rowan for asking, as if she hadn't been worrying about that herself. I liked you a lot more before I knew you, he told her. You still don't know me, she answered, which was true. Then she sighed, and for the first time since their night at the opera, she offered up something more than attitude. We're being forced to live together and forced to compete at something neither of us want to compete over. I know it's not your fault, but it doesn't exactly put us in a friendly place. I know, Rowan admitted. After all, Citra didn't own all the tension between them. But that still doesn't mean we can't have each other's backs. She didn't answer him. He didn't expect her to. It was just a seed he wanted to plant. Over the past 2 months, he had learned that no one had his back anymore. Perhaps no one ever did. His friends had pulled away. He was a footnote in his own family. There was only one person now who shared his plight. It was Citra. If they couldn't find a way to trust each other, then what did they have beyond a learner's permit to kill? From the Gleaning Journals of H.S. Curie. The greatest achievement of the human race was not conquering death. It was ending government. Back in the days when the world's digital network was called the cloud, people thought giving too much power to an artificial intelligence would be a very bad idea. Cautionary tales abundant in every form of media. The machines were already the enemy. But then the cloud evolved into the Thunderhead, sparking with consciousness, or at least a remarkable Fashamil? In stark contrast to people's fears, the Thunderhead did not seize power. Instead, it was people who came to realize that it was far better suited to run things than politicians. In those days, before the Thunderhead, human arrogance, self-interest, and endless infighting determined the rule of law. Inefficient, imperfect, vulnerable to all forms of corruption. But the Thunderhead was incorruptible. Not only that, but its algorithms were built on the full sum of human knowledge. All the time and money wasted on political posturing, the lives lost in wars, the populations abused by despots, all gone the moment the Thunderhead was handed power. Of course, the politicians, dictators, and warmongers weren't happy, but their voices, which had always seemed so loud and intimidating, were suddenly insignificant. The emperor not only had no clothes, turns out he had no testicles either. The Thunderhead quite literally knew everything. When and where to build roads, how to eliminate waste in food distribution and thus end hunger, how to protect the environment from the ever-growing human population. It created jobs, it clothed the poor, and it established the world code. Now, for the first time in history, law was no longer the shadow of justice. It was justice. The Thunderhead gave us a perfect world, the utopia that our ancestors could only dream of as our reality. There was only one thing the Thunderhead was not given authority over: the Scythedom. When it was decided that people needed to die in order to ease the tide of population growth, it was also decided that this must be the responsibility of humans. Bridge repair and urban planning could be handled by the Thunderhead, but taking a life was an act of consciousness and conscience. Since it could not be proven that the Thunderhead had either, the Scythe was born. I do not regret the decision, but I often wonder if the Thunderhead would have done a better job. Chapter 5. But I'm only 96. While a trip to the market should have been an ordinary, everyday occurrence, Citra found that food shopping with a scythe carried its own basket of crazy. The moment the market doors parted for them and the three of them stepped in, the dread around them was enough to raise goose flesh on Citra's arms. Nothing but nothing so blatant as gasps or screams, gaps and screams.
Gapsfish. Remus. Little boy.
Remus, do you want to come here,
Remus.
cuddle?
Are you the sleepy boy over there?
I
Do
think
you
he is
want
the
to
sleepy
be
boy.
the sleepy boy over here?
Remus?
Oopsies. Me.
No, he is really the sleepy boy. Maybe you could get the other boy.
Hello, boy. A small boy.
A small pepperoni boy.
A small pepperoni boy. Hello.
Nothing so blatant as gasps and screams, but people were used to sights passing through their daily lives. It was silent but pervasive, as if they had just accidentally strolled into some theatrical stage and fouled the performance. Citra noticed that, in general, there were three types of people. One, the Deniers. These were the people who forged on and pretended the Scythe wasn't there. It wasn't just a matter of ignoring him, it was actively, willfully denying his presence. It reminded Citra of the way very small children would play hide and seek, covering their own eyes to hide, thinking that if they couldn't see you, then you couldn't see them. 2. The escape artists. These were the people who ran away, but tried to make it look like if they weren't. They suddenly remembered they forgot to get the eggs, or began chasing after a running child that didn't actually exist. One shopper abandoned a cart, mumbling about a wallet he must have left at home. Despite an obvious bulge in his back pocket, he hurried out and did not come back. The Scythe's pets. Number 3, the Scythe's pets. These were the people who went out of their way to engage the Scythe and offer him something, with the secret, in parentheses, not so secret, hope that he might grant them immunity, or at least glean the person to their right instead of them someday. Here, Your Honor, take my melon. It's bigger. I insist. Did these people know that such psychopathic behavior would make a Scythe want to glean them even more? Not that Citra would want to level a death penalty for such a thing, but if she were given a choice between some innocent bystander and someone who was being nauseatingly obsequious about their produce, she'd choose the melon giver. There was one shopper who didn't seem to fit the other 3 profiles, a woman who actually seemed pleased to see him. "Good morning, Scythe Faraday," she said as they passed her near the deli counter, then looked at Citra and Rowan, curious. "Your niece and nephew?" "Hardly," he said, but a bit of disdain in his voice, for relatives Citra had no interest in knowing about. "I've taken apprentices." Her eyes widened a bit. "Such a thing," she said, in a way that made it unclear whether she thought it good or bad. "Do they have a penchant for the work?" Don't know what that means. Not in the slightest. She nodded. "Well then, I guess it's all right. You know what they say, have not a hand in the blade with abandon."
Got it in
You know what they
one.
say.
You know what they say.
"Have not a hand in the blade with abandon." The Scythe smiled, so it probably was fun. I don't know what that means. The Scythe smiled. "I hope I can introduce them to your strudel sometime." She nodded at the 2 of them. Not talk for my life today.
It's so good. Do you want me to read?
Well,
That goes without saying.
that is the sentence. Good
Yes,
job.
thank you.
After she had moved on, Scythe Faraday explained that she was a longtime friend. "She cooks for me from time to time, and she works in the coroner's office. In my line of work, it's always good to have a friend there." "Did you grant her immunity?" Citra asked. Rowan thought the Scythe might be indignant at the question, but instead he answered, "The Scythedom frowns upon those who play favorites, but I found I can grant her immunity on alternate years without raising a red flag." "What if another Scythe gleans her during the off years?" "Then I shall attend her funeral with a heartfelt grief," he told them. As they stopped, Citra chose some snacks that the Scythe eyed dubiously. "Are these really necessary?" he asked. "Is anything really necessary?" Citra responded. Rowan found it amusing how Citra gave the Scythe attitude, but it worked. He let her keep the chips. Rowan tried to be more practical, picking out staples like eggs, flour, and various proteins, and side dishes to go with them. "Don't get the chickenoid tenders," Citra said, looking at his choices. "Trust me, my mother's a food synthesis engineer. Forgot how horrible that word was. That stuff's not actually chicken. They grow it in a petri dish." Rowan held up another bag of frozen protein. "How about this? Sea steak? Sure, if you like plankton pressed into meat shapes." Teamwork. "Well then, maybe you should pick your own meals instead of grabbing sweets and snacks." "Are you always this boring?" she asked. "Didn't he say we have to live as he lives? I don't think cookie dough ice cream is part of his lifestyle." She sneered at him.
I couldn't be a Scythe. Up until now, I have been fine, and now...
No, that was the breaking point.
That
You
was
can't
the
have
breaking
cookies
point
and cream
for
ice
me.
cream.
Thank you.
God damn it. She sneered at him, but switched out the flavor for vanilla. That's how you do it.
Mm-hmm.
As they continued to shop, it was Citra who first noticed 2 suspicious-looking teens who seemed to be tracking them through the store, lingering behind them and trying to look like they were just shopping. They were probably unsavories? People who found enjoyment in activities that bordered on the fringe of the law. People who found enjoyment in activities that bordered on the fringe of the law. Thank you. Sometimes unsavories actually broke the law in minor ways, although most lost interest eventually because they were always caught by the Thunderhead and reprimanded by the peace officers. The more troublesome offenders were tweaked with shock nanites in their blood, just powerful enough to deter any scuffing of the law. And if that didn't work, you got your own personal peace officer 24/7. Citra had an uncle like that. He called his officer his guardian angel and eventually married her. She tugged on Rowan's sleeve, bringing the unsavories to his attention, but not to Scythe Faraday's. "Why do you think they're following us?" They probably think they're going to be a gleaning and they want to watch, suggested Rowan, which seemed a likely theory. As it turned out, however, they had other motives. As the three of them waited in the checkout line, one of the unsavories grabbed Scythe Faraday's hand and kissed his ring before he could stop him. The ring began to glow red, indicating his immunity. "Ha!" said the unsavory, puffing at his strategic triumph. "I've got immunity for a year, and you can't undo it. I know the rules." Scythe Faraday was unfazed. "Yes, good for you," he said. "You have 365 days of immunity." And then, looking him in the eye, he said, "And I'll be seeing you on day 366.
Oh my God.
Suddenly, the teen's smug expression dropped, as if all the muscles that held up his face failed. He stuttered a bit, and his friend pulled him away. They ran out of the store as fast as they could. "Well played," said another man in line. He offered to pay for the Scythe's groceries, which was pointless because Scythe got their groceries for free anyway. "Will you really track him down a year from now?" Rowan asked. The Scythe grabbed a roll of breath mints. That makes more sense. Breath mints.
I would love gum that tasted like bread.
Bread mints?
Yeah, just like freshly baked bread
Bread
with
mints,
butter.
yeah. Oh, that would be awesome. That'll probably be a thing later on, I swear to God.
Yeah, I'm gonna be a
Bread mints.
Indian.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're gonna be that for sure.
Yeah.
Breath mints from the rack. Not worth my time. Besides, I've already meted out his punishment. He'll be worried about being gleaned all year. A lesson for both of you. A Scythe does not have to follow through on a threat for it to be effective. Then, a few minutes later, as they were loading the grocery bags into a public car, the Scythe looked across the parking lot. "There," he said. "You see that woman? The one who just dropped her purse?" "Yeah," said Rowan. Scythe Faraday pulled out his phone, aimed the camera at the woman, and in an instant, information about her began to scroll on the screen. Naturally 96 years of age, physically 34, mother of 9. Data management technician for a small shipping company. She's off to work after she puts away her groceries, the Scythe told them. This afternoon, we will go to her place of business and glean her. Citra drew in an audible breath. Not quite a gasp, but close. Rowan focused on his own breathing, so he didn't telegraph his emotions in the way Citra had. "Why?" he asked. "Why her?" The Scythe gave him a cool look. "Why not her?" "You had a reason for gleaning Whitlock." "Who?" Citra asked. "A kid I knew at school when I first met our honorable Scythe here." Faraday sighed. "Fatalities in parking lots make up 1.25% of all accidental deaths during the last days of the age of mortality. Last night I decided I would choose today's subject from our parking lot." "So all this time while we were shopping, you knew it would end with this," Rowan said. "I feel bad for you," Citra said. "Even when you're food shopping, death is hiding right behind the milk." "It never hides," the Scythe told them with a world weariness that was hard to describe. "Nor does it sleep. You will learn that soon enough. You will learn that soon enough." The punctuation needs to be right as well, or the sentence is just weird.
No, that's fine.
"You will learn that soon enough." But it wasn't something either of them was eager to learn. That afternoon, just as the Scythe had said, they went to the shopping company where the woman worked, and they watched, just as Rowan had watched Cole's gleaning. But today, it was a little more than mere observation. "I have chosen for you a life-terminating pill," Scythe Faraday told the speechless, tremulous woman. He reached into his robe and produced a small pill in a little glass vial. "It will not activate until you bite it, so you can choose the moment. You need not swallow it, just bite it.
Oh my God.
Death will be instantaneous and painless." Her head shook like a bobblehead doll. May I call my children?" Scythe Faraday sadly shook his head. "Why was there not a..."
Oh, they fucked up.
They fucked up. Scythe
That was
Faraday.
not on you.
No, that was
on
actually
the
not
book.
on me. That was on the book. There's a typo. There was not an end to the quote. Scythe Faraday sadly shook his head. No, I'm sorry, but we shall pass on any message you have for them. What would it hurt to allow her to say goodbye? Citra asked. He put up a hand to silence her and handed the woman a pen and piece of paper. Say all you need to say in this letter. I promise we shall deliver it. They waited outside her office. Scythe Faraday seemed to have infinite patience. What if she opens the window and decides to splat? Rowan asked. Then her life will end on schedule. It would be an unpleasant choice, but the ultimate result is the same. The woman didn't choose to splat. Instead, she let them back into her room, politely handed the envelope to Scythe Faraday, and sat down at her desk. I'm ready. Then, Scythe Faraday did something they didn't expect. He turned to Rowan and handed him the vial. Please place the pill in Mrs. Becker's mouth. Who, me? Scythe Faraday didn't answer. He simply held the vial out, waiting for Rowan to take it. Rowan knew he wasn't officially performing the gleaning, but to be an intermediary. The thought was debilitating. All these words.
Yeah.
He swallowed, tasting bitterness as if the pill were in his own mouth. He refused to take it. Scythe Faraday gave him a moment more, then turned to Citra. You then. Citra just shook her head. Scythe Faraday smiled. Very good, he told them. I was testing you. I would not have been pleased if either of you were eager to administer death. At the word death, the woman took a shuddering breath. Scythe Faraday opened the vial and carefully removed the pill. It was a triangular with dark green coating. Who knew death could arrive so small? But I'm only 96, the woman said. We know, the Scythe told her. Now please, open your mouth. Remember, it's not to swallow. You must bite it. She opened her mouth, as she was told, and Scythe Faraday placed the pill on her tongue. She closed her mouth, but didn't bite it right away. She looked at each of them in return. Rowan, then Citra, then finally settled her gaze on Scythe Faraday. Then, the slightest crunch, and she went limp. Simple as that. But not so simple at all. Citra's eyes were moist. She pressed her lips together. As much as Rowan tried to control his emotions, his breath came out uneasily and he felt lightheaded. And then Scythe Faraday turned to Citra. Check for a pulse, please. Who, me? The Scythe was patient. He didn't ask again. The man never asked the thing twice. When she continued to hesitate, he finally said, This time, it's not a test. I actually want you to confirm for me that she has no pulse. Citra reached up a hand to the woman's neck. Other side, the Scythe told her. She pressed her fingers to the woman's carotid artery, just beneath her ear. No pulse. Satisfied, Scythe Faraday stood. So that's it? Citra asked. What were you expecting? Said Rowan. A chorus of angels? Citra threw him a half-hearted glare. But I mean, it's so uneventful. Rowan knew what she meant. Rowan had expected the electrical jolt that had taken his schoolmate's life. It was awful, but somehow this was worse. What now? Do we just leave her like this? Best not to linger, Scythe Faraday said, tapping something out on his phone. I've notified the coroner to come collect Mrs. Becker's body. Then he took the letter she had written and slipped it into one of the many pockets of his robe. You two shall present the letter to her family at the funeral. Wait, Citra said. We're going to her funeral? I thought you said it was best not to linger, said Rowan. Lingering and paying respects are two different things. I attend the funerals of all the people I glean. Is that a Scythe rule? Rowan asked, having never been at a funeral. No, it's my rule, he told them. It's called common decency. Then they left. Rowan and Citra both avoiding eye contact with the dead woman's co-workers. This, both of them realized, was their first initiation rite. This was the moment their apprenticeship had truly begun.
Okay. Ba, ba, ba.
That's the first part of Scythe by Neal Shusterman. That was a mess. I apologize in advance. I have been up since 5 o'clock this morning. It's a really cool book.
Yeah.
It only gets cooler.
I like it a lot so far.
I like that you like it. It has fun characters.
Yeah.
They work very well together.
Who will definitely not fall in love.
Who will definitely not fall in love at all.
No.
I don't know why you would think that even.
No, because they said they couldn't.
No,
so,
exactly.
I mean,
It's
they
not
have
allowed.
to follow the rules.
Yeah, it's not allowed.
Obviously.
So they can't fall in love. This is the last time we're going to read this book.
Yeah.
Because we can't do an audiobook on YouTube.
No.
So instead, I really do promote you to buy it.
Yeah.
And listen to it if you like it. And next time, we'll read something different.
Yay!
So if you have a suggestion for a book that you would like me to read, shout it into the void. We'll hear it. I think that's it.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else to say?
No.
No? Thank you for coming to our little reading nook. And we'll see you guys
On the flippity flop side.
on the flippity flop side.
We should have a theme song for like the end of the videos. It could
theme
go
song?
like, yeah, it could go like boop da na na na.
That's what you want?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's still going?